So we are officially recording. How does it sound? Do you hear me okay?
I do. I hear you well. Yeah.
And guess what? I'm hearing you perfectly right now. We're feeling good, Dwayne.
Good. 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 Yeah.
See, look at us youngsters figuring out technology, troubleshooting.
Chris, you're the youngster. Let's get this straight.
Let's dive in. I appreciate your time. So I'm just going to introduce you really quickly, and then we'll
Okay.
talk about values and how it applies to your life and to your books.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
All right. So Duane Lawrence, based in Vancouver, retired. I'm just reading off these little notes here. I'm going to move them over so that I look like I'm
Sure.
facing you more.
Okay.
Retired teacher and children's book author known for Sammy the Squirrel and the Rodney Raccoon series. His books are set primarily in Stanley Park, sometimes extending to locations such as Japan, and explore themes of courage, friendship, and cultural understanding. We're chatting today because you decided to join a value session with me, V13 Media Group, Life Media Group, because V13 is leet speak for the French word la vie. We have values. We have 13 values, and one
Yes.
of them is vision, ambition, and that's the one that resonated with you. I would love to talk about your books and who you are and why you picked that value to discuss.
Okay. Very good. Love to.
Well, so why don't you tell me a little bit of a background? Like, how did you go from, being an English teacher in Japan to deciding to write some children's books?
Well, I always had the idea. I wasn't a writer per se. Like you say, I was teaching English. I had a degree in French language and literature and also with an English minor. I finished university. I wanted to travel. But the idea actually for a story came to me much earlier in about my early mid 20s when I was walking through the park one day, a beautiful summer day with a friend, and we went by Beaver Lake. And you know what it's like midsummer, all the animals, the birds flying, the squirrels, the dragonflies, the turtles in the lake and so on. And I said, why hasn't anybody ever written a story about the animals of Stanley Park? It's a perfect thing to do. And honestly, we got about another 10, 20 feet, and I said, I'm going to do that one day. But I put that on in the back of my mind and forgot about it. And it was years later, I'm teaching in Nara, Japan, and it was winter, and they get very cold winters there. And the flu season was full on, colds and stuff. And you had to use the trains a lot to go anywhere, the subway or the trains in Japan. They're so well developed there, and everybody uses them. And I didn't want to get sick because the year before I had, and it was a terrible flu probably because I had no immunity in Japan, right, to that
Yeah.
particular virus. So I thought, I'm not doing that again. And then it just clicked. I thought, that story, I should start. Maybe now's the time. So I just jotted down some ideas, went back to our school in our department room, the English department. They had a lot of children's stories and books of all kinds. I picked some sort of, beginner children's books, took them home to look at structure, how to use the quotations and so on, because I'd never written a story.
Hmm.
I mean, I'd done essays in university. That's not a story. I see your buddy going by there behind you. But
Guest appearance.
pardon me?
Guest appearance.
Guest appearance, exactly. Yeah. Well, we're talking about animals, so he said, "Ooh, you're talking about me?" But anyway, I just got started, and honestly, Chris, it just flowed. It was like it had been gestating or something. And then I'm
Hmm.
not saying it was good quality writing, but the ideas I just knew where I was going. I just, oh, wow, this has been gestating, and it had because over the years I'd sometimes ponder, well, what animals would I pick? Well, squirrel and a raccoon. What might they do? Right? Just when
Hmm.
I had free time, occasionally I would go back to that idea. So I think when you do that, your subconscious just starts working with you in a way. I really believe that. So
That's
that's how it
fascinating.
that's how it got started,
I,
basically.
I I love how you've already said so much, and this is great. You know, we'll lead into to the values, but as you know, I work with artists and authors all the time, and
Yeah.
that spark, right? That lightning, that thing that all of a sudden hits you, where this idea materializes out of seemingly nowhere.
Yeah.
That happened in the park, and I love how you put it in your pocket and you left it there, and it almost germinated until you had a second one that reminded you of that, and you said, "Okay, now is the time. Now is the time to explore this more." You know?
It is what happened. You know how they say sometimes boredom is a good thing? So there
Yeah.
I am at home with nothing to do, trying to avoid the cold and the flu. That rhymes, by the way. And there it was, right? It was just ready to start going in a really rough way. It's like if you had a canvas, I'm just throwing paint on the canvas. There's, not really any picture forming. But yeah, it had been in my imagination. And I tell, I haven't done a lot of school visits lately. I'm retired now, but I did in the beginning with the first book a lot. And sometimes older kids would ask me, well, like you just did, how do you get the idea and what do you do with it? I said, make sure it's fun.
Hmm.
It has to be, you either have to be passionate about it. If it's a serious book, let's say, literature with a lot of drama in it, that's fine as long as you're passionate. But my passion was in writing this, it had to be fun. And I don't mean that as a rule. It just was the way it was. So
Right.
when certain ideas would come to me, sometimes I just burst out laughing. Like, for example, there's a song at the end of the first story to the tune of O Canada, and it is O Stanley Park, and it's the animals' anthem that they secretly sing at the old hollow hall, which is that old hollow tree in the park?
Yeah.
That's in my imagination and story, that's the Stanley Park Animals Community Center. And
That's
after
funny.
all the humans leave, occasionally, if there's an important matter the park animals have to discuss, they meet at the old hollow tree. And that's where they sing, Oh, Stanley Park. So I just, I guess it's ego, but I laughed so much when I got that idea, right? This is fun. This is really fun. So I created the song and it's in the book. And then when I would do school visits, the best part was you got to keep it with, grade 1, 2, and 3, which is what the first two books are for. They're early chapter books for ages 7 to 9. You got to keep it engaging. So I would just pick sections of the book and not couldn't read the whole 106 pages to a bunch of kids in 40 minutes,
Yeah.
And then I just say, I'd create a scene. I say, what do you think happens next? What animal would they meet next out in the
Mhm.
middle of the ocean? And then the kids would throw out ideas, some of them wonderful, some of them crazy, and we'd all laugh. And then I say, no, they actually met a whale. What do you think her name was? Winifred Whale. But and then I pass out laminated illustrations for those particular scenes I picked. So they're listening, they're answering questions, and they're passing around these laminated pictures of that particular part of the book that I'm reading about, trying
Mhm.
to keep it all engaged. Then at the end, I hand out the song sheets and I say, now we're going to sing. I said, well, that's the end of the story. We're going to sing the song from the book. It's called Oh Stanley Park. And then I'm going to have the song sheet. So the teachers are helping. And I said, you don't know the words. So that's why I'm giving you the sheets. But you know the tune because it goes like this. Da, 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 da. And of course, well, not all, but a bunch of kids shout out, Oh, Canada. I said, no, Oh Stanley Park. And then we all sing Oh Stanley Park. And me putting lots of, enthusiasm into it. And
Yeah.
you should see the teachers smiling that I had taken "O Canada" and turned it into "O Stanley Park," and the kids singing along. And then at the end, I would say, "Now remember, at your next assembly, don't start singing "O Stanley Park."
Well, it's simple because it's such a well-known song or tune here, but you're taking these ideas and making them easily digestible, easily addictive, for lack of better words, for the kids. And
Yeah,
I want to go back to something you said quickly. You know, you
yeah,
said maybe it's ego. I don't think it's ego to love what you're doing. I think that that's kind of the most important thing. The Japanese have a saying, which is ikigai, right? Like you found
yes,
your
yes,
reason,
That's
and
right.
you love what you're doing and you're putting all of yourself into those things and it's resonating with an audience. So for you to love your song or love the concepts or characters is not bad at all. I think that's a beautiful thing. Why don't we, on that concept of ikigai, go to
Yeah.
the values? So
Okay.
for me, a vision is really ambition encapsulates our aspirational nature and our forward looking perspective, which couldn't be more apropos than this idea you had in Stanley Park and you looked forward, into the future where ultimately you started to do it. So talk to me a bit about, the vision and what it means to you in this particular context.
Okay. Well, first, I'm going to describe a broader context before I talk about the stories and my vision for them, okay?
Sure.
Because I have learned through life and through courses I've taken and things and just life experience that, we're constantly creating our own futures. It is a choice, right? So as a
Agreed.
teacher, I don't tell students this, and it took me a long time to get quite good at it, but I'm always speaking to their future selves. I taught high school, French mainly, sometimes ESL, and 1 year introductory Japanese. But I know that, you know, human beings are always in process. We are. And we can see it with kids, of course, right? But so are we as adults, always in some process, and there's going to be a new future self. I'm in the old age process now. So what do I create with that, right? So
Yeah.
I'm kind of speaking to those kids. When I walk in that room, I am the possibility. I usually used to create the possibility of love and learning, but I wouldn't tell them that. I just say that to myself, and I kind of like skiing down a hill. I'm just
Mhm.
doing it without thinking about it. And it was quite effective because you'd get those kids coming around, you'd see the eyes brightening and even when I substitute teach now, I rarely have behavior problems in class. Within 15 minutes, most of the time, it's not a perfect world, but most of the time they're engaged, they're putting up their hands, it just works. What is that? I don't know. It's partly what I'm doing. I mean, 75% is your body language, but I'm caring, I'm prepared, I'm ready to go. I've reviewed what the teacher left very, very well. I always write really. So I think so why I put vision into that is every moment, if you're conscious of it, you're creating the future. I could lay back and let it happen, or I can be creating it. So that's what I choose to do with teaching and in my own life. When it comes to, so I have a vision, you know what I'm saying, right? For how the class is
Yeah.
going to go, how the class
Yeah.
is going to go. And it seems to be very effective now that I'm older and I also have more time for them. I'm not worried about, report cards and marking and lesson planning. I'm doing someone else's lesson, right? But it goes
Mhm.
so well. And I have kids saying to me, "Are you coming back tomorrow, Mr. Lawrence?" That kind of thing. And
It's funny is like so such a I'm just going to jump in for a second. It's such an important part of storytelling that I think that people don't necessarily understand is you can have the best story in the world, but if you don't have an audience, like you're yelling into the ether. And I don't
yeah,
know why, but when you were talking about the kids, I thought of the
yeah,
movie Dangerous Minds with Michelle Pfeiffer, and really it comes down to being real, to being authentic and communicating with the students regardless of the age or even, it doesn't have to be students, it could be the audience
right.
in a way that's relatable to
Yes,
them.
that's
That's
right.
not inauthentic, right? Because people know bullshit. They can smell it, and kids can too, probably more so than adults. So it
That's
sounds
it.
like you're just coming in with the approach of, I'm a loving man. I am here to teach and do cool things and help you learn and grow. Let's figure out a calm way to do that.
That's it. And it's got to be age appropriate. You talk
Yeah.
about authentic. It's not the way I would talk to family and friends, right? About certain things. But
Yeah.
you're right. You are right. You gotta care. You gotta like your subject. I've always liked words. I've always liked languages ever since I was a kid. So it was a perfect fit for me. Some people have singing voices. They sing like angels. I do not. Some people are some people are good with numbers, right? It's innate. Some people are athletic. They pick up a bat, a ball, it doesn't matter and they're good at it. For me, it was always words. So
Mm.
so perhaps when I go in that room, there's the authenticity. I like it and I'm kind of good at it, you know?
Yeah.
So the kids pick up at that. And then, but anyway, so what I mean by the future vision, which is why I liked your value the best, is I think we're always doing it. If you're conscious, you are always creating the future. You have a vision for how things are going to go at that dinner or at that event or that holiday, and you try to make it happen, right? You have a
Hmm.
vision for it. So to take that into the stories, um, I created a world there that was just so much fun for me. And it's why I'm so appreciative of you doing this, because I do, and I mentioned this in my email to you, I can see this as some kind of animated film or something. It's an amazing world. Like, just look at this cover. So this is the first book, and you see the Sammy's serving tea to his friend Rodney Raccoon way up in his Douglas fir tree, right?
Yeah.
This was drawn by Gordon Clover. He has now passed away, but he was hired by the publisher to do my artwork, and she sent me 3 sketches, black and white sketches of different things from 3 artists.
Hmm.
No, pardon me, 3 artists and different sketches. I picked him because that's what I saw in my head,
Hmm.
more or less. That was it. That's exactly the scene I saw when I was typing it, right? So I phoned her up right away. I said, that guy, he sees my world. That's where we are. So every picture he did after that, yep, that's what I saw. That's what I saw. So it was Gordon 100%. And I just feel like there's got to be someone out there, and I'm passionate about this, that sees that world as well and wants to maybe create a animation of it, right?
Hmm.
Maybe even incorporate all 3 stories in some way into it. And it's because of the feedback I've gotten. You know, I don't think I've ever had anybody make a negative comment. Of course, locally, people always say, "Wow, great idea! Our park, Stanley Park, wonderful idea." Um, and
Well,
that is true. Go
it's
ahead.
more than that, Dwayne, if I can jump in, like, because, there's probably, as you and I know, there are so many artists, musicians, and authors who are aspiring to hit a certain level, and most of them don't. It's not dissimilar to professional sports, right? Like, the chances of making it are very low. However, you've actually made it in many ways. I mean, you can talk to it more. I know that you have uh, your own degrees and your own accolades, but the book itself, and keep me honest here, I'm just reading a note, was
Yeah.
in the top 100 recommended books for BC kids. I don't know by which group, um, but
Oh,
it's done really well.
in that sense, yes, that was the elementary school teachers who are part of the BCTF, the BC Teachers Federation, and it was
Mhm.
during their centenary. I think it's a few years ago now. I think that was 2017, and both the secondary and the elementary school teachers published a big poster with a list of their top 100 books separately, so secondary and elementary. And lo and behold, my little book was on that list with, J.K. Rowling and all these other, Lucy Maud Montgomery, Anna Green Gables. I mean, there were all kinds of books, right? But they were
Yeah.
in there too. And I thought, wow, that is very cool. And I wondered how did that come into existence? Well, it had a lot to do with my school visits. In the beginning, I had a lot of energy back in 2007, 8, 9, and 10. And I was out there in West Van schools, Vancouver schools, Burnaby, Richmond, doing school visits and
Yeah.
then talking to librarians. So they, by word of mouth, I guess, right, maybe suggested to their school librarians or other teachers, I don't know. And that must be how that came to be, right?
That's such an important anecdote because I think a lot of musicians, artists nowadays, creatives in general, they rely so much on the internet, and this art of the hustle has been lost. When you go out and you actually do person to person
Yeah.
communication, I'm doing it now with the podcast. I have 5,000 flyers with a little QR
Wow.
code on one of them. And I go out to stores and record shops
Gee.
and coffee shops, and I'm like, "Hey, my name's Chris. This is what I do. Check it out." I even have
Gee.
my kids helping me. Like they're earning dollars towards going to get toys
Like
by helping
delivering
me.
newspapers a bit.
Yeah, but it's good for
Yeah.
their social skills as well to
Sure.
not be scared in public. So
Absolutely.
vision, you clearly still have vision because you're still looking ahead with this project with
Yeah.
trying to translate into television or animation, which I think can be done. It's just about the connection. So keep that vision in your mind. Let's take
Yeah.
a quick step back because for me,
Sure.
these conversations are about the values, but everything that I'm doing with the Heart Dealer podcast in general comes
Yeah.
down to my mindset, right? I can't stress this enough for anyone watching or listening is that there are two things involved in art.
Yeah.
It's the art and it's the mindset. It's the music industry is the music industry and the art. And the industry is just the mindset. How much are you going to take on yourself? How much are you going to roll up your sleeves? Are you going to just say, "Oh, well, I just need someone to do it for me," or are you going to hustle? That
Got
requires a
it.
certain amount of mindset. You speak multiple language, including Japanese, which is awesome. I've got a big love for Japan. Do you
Oh.
think that your travels, your culture, your languages helped you to grow the mindset, or were you always this way?
Um, I don't think well, I was always kind of passionate as a young person. Yeah. Um, Japan had a lot to do with it, as did I spent a year in England substitute teaching as well. Um, but remember, with the first story, I connected Stanley Park to Nara Park. So in
Mm,
the city of Nara, which is their most original capital back in 800 AD, right? It was the first capital of Japan's centralized government, and now it's got a lot of historical sites. It's a modern small city, but it has a big park, not like Stanley Park with the flora and fauna, but it is huge. So I love being near there because I want to be near nature.
mm,
Vancouver has Stanley Park. Nara has Nara Park with 1,000 tame deer in it, literally, and which sounds a little dangerous for us here in Canada, not workable and against the law, but they actually allow it in that park, and the deer are pretty friendly and used to the park wanderers, and they are trained in a way. They make them bow by they created these special biscuits, and then the deer will bow down to get a biscuit from you. And of course, when the antlers grow, there's a special area where they'll take the deer and cut off those antlers so no one gets hurt in the park,
mm,
right? And of course, that's not, it doesn't sound very kind to the deer to do that, and they go through sort of a trauma after. You'll see some of the male deer kind of they'll be sweating a bit and they just don't look good post antler cutting, but it has to
mm.
be done if they're going to allow these deer into the park. So
Yeah.
visitors can literally, you put a biscuit in front, the head goes down, you give it the biscuit, but now they're getting a little bit aggressive. So, I mean, I know that's sort of a side issue to what I'm talking about, but there was the passion. I thought, I want to park animals, but I'm really talking about people to people because
Mm,
I had been in Japan for a while there, started to understand the point of view, the cultural perspective, the groupism, as opposed to the strong groupism, as opposed to the strong individualism of North America, especially Americans, I would say. And I
yeah.
feel like Canadians are sort of somewhere in the middle, in a sense, between the groupism of Japan and the individualism of the US, because we have our strong social network, or, there's medical care where we are, I think, much more group oriented. So, I got very passionate about that, wanting to express how alike we all are, and yet we have these different cultures.
Yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate the anecdote too. It's funny. There's two things that came to mind. One is I feel like with Japanese culture, and not all of the world, maybe most of the world doesn't have this, especially North America now, maybe Europe, because of all the stuff that's happened over the last, decades.
Yeah.
Japan has this really awesome self of the sense of the I, but not the me. Excuse me. So what I'm saying is like it's okay to really know and love yourself. It's important. It's urgent, but you don't have to make it about you. And I feel like the Japanese balance the I and the we really well, and that they don't focus on the me. What do you think?
That's very, very true. That's very, very true. Expressing strong emotion traditionally, okay, I think it's changing a lot as they're
Mm,
influenced by the rest of the world, young people, their education, modern education system. Strong, strong, strong sense of group identity from childhood upward, right?
hmm
You see them on playgrounds. Like the school that I taught also had a preschool, kindergarten, and already they're wearing the same colored caps, and they're practicing for maybe a big assembly, and they're marching in groups with flags and doing
hmm
coordinated movements at a very early age, right? Which I don't think we do here in preschool and elementary schools, in large groups of them. And expressing strong anger or whatever is seen as childish. Whereas, individualism, I have a right to my strong opinion, you know? So I learned a lot, and it really did affect me in many, many ways.
hmm
Um, I can't tell you the number of anecdotes I have. Like my first school was a business school, and they had a very small staff room. And when you first go in there, it just seems unbelievable that it would be so tiny. You're squeezing by the wall to get to your chair. And of
hmm
course, the foreign teachers there, everyone would comment quite out loud, "Oh my God, this is so small. How do you guys do this?" After 6 months of living in that culture, the new English teacher from the UK, Australia, America, Canada, wherever, walks in the room with 10 Japanese staff and 3, 4 foreign teachers and does that really loud comment. We're all embarrassed because we now see it from the Japanese perspective. You are a guest in this country, and you've been welcome to teach in this school, and you're
hmm
now blasting your negativity all over the place in the staff room. But I wouldn't have seen that before. I was blind to that. I was just expressing an opinion 6 months earlier.
Yeah.
Now I saw it.
It's funny because we mentioned the comment of anger there, and immediately I was kind of protective of anger in the sense that I don't want people to think that anger is wrong. In fact,
Nope,
Zach De La Rocha, the lead singer of Rage Against the Machine, has a line in one of his songs where he says anger is a gift. But the Japanese, it seems like, have much stronger sense of emotional intelligence and realize that anger is useless unless used, right? And you can harness that in a calm, constructive way
absolutely.
rather than explosive, destructive that doesn't help.
That's right. That's right. In the context of harmony, it's all
Yeah.
about harmony. So of course that's all I meant. I didn't mean good or bad. I was just trying to tell you I've read it and I saw it, that they see it as destructive unless there's some use to it,
hmm
you know.
Yeah.
So when I came back, I remember a moment. This will sound silly, but it's the God's truth. It was an experiential thing. When I came back, I think it was about 3 or 4 months later, um, I was walking, and I had this sense that I was um, I had been deep in water, like let's say the ocean or something, and I was now coming to the surface. I thought, what a weird feeling coming out of water, and I knew what it was. I For 9 years, I had been in that culture, and it's all about groupism. And I had been, to my level, not being a native born Japanese, I had become part of the group in my own mind. So what
Mm,
was happening was my brain was opening up these boxes again to my own individualism as a Canadian. Do you know what I mean? I was
yeah.
coming out of the water of the group and rising again, and oh, the light came on. And I
Right.
had even people in my family, my mother said to me, "Oh, thank God you're not smiling all the time anymore." Or, "And you're not saying sorry all the time." And I said, "Was I?" She said, "Yeah, all the time." Sorry, because sumimasen, sumimasen, you know? And these
Yeah.
things become unconscious. You just do them, right?
It's crazy how much, things like nature, travel, learning, cultural understanding, things that you love so much and that have influenced your books, change us for the better. Like they help us find ourselves. They help us I find that I that you clearly
Yeah.
found. And I think that the other thing I wanted to say, going back to my previous point where I said I have two comments, was it's crazy how the journey was like I had this aha moment
Yeah.
in Stanley Park. I went
Yeah.
all the way to Japan. I'm
Yeah.
in another park, and then I realized this is how I write the book and finish the
Yeah.
book. And
Yeah.
you went from head to tail, park to park, and here we are.
Yeah. And I had no idea. You know what I mean? It was in there. I didn't think, oh, here's my plan, write a book about the park. No, it just, as you say, it just arises if that's, your interest, these things come about. I'm sure with your own business,
Yeah,
that you had the idea and as you're going along, new ideas arise, right? Of what
yeah,
you're going to do. It's a wonderful thing. It's creativity is what it is, right?
yeah.
Bringing things into being.
I find it fascinating that you spent time in Japan. Japan for me is such a huge piece of my life. One of my best friends is Japanese. I've known him longer than most people in this world. I really identify with a lot of the principles and the philosophies that they have.
Yeah.
One of the ones that I like the most, that is the hardest, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's not. There's wabi sabi and there's the Japanese enzo, which I have both here.
Wow.
This idea of impermanence, of
Yeah.
being so present and now in the moment, because this is all that matters.
Yes.
You and I and everyone else gets caught up in the success, and I want the book to be a story, and if it's not, and
It's
this and that.
true. It's true.
But they're so focused on now.
Yeah.
Is that how you are? Do you do that? Where are you?
Yeah, largely, especially now that I'm older, because,
Mm,
there's limited time left, right? When you're 70 years
yeah.
old. So I am much more present. Yeah. And I can balance that, and they have to too. There is a future coming. It's not over. You haven't expired. So you can be in the moment, but you have to, everything in moderation. You had a past,
Mm,
there's the present, there's the future. You have to be planning for the future. Things could go awry very quickly, right?
yeah.
So I'm present as much as I can be, but I'm always looking ahead as well to make sure that's my future self is taken care of as well. And
Yeah.
I think I didn't really answer your question. You said about the drive and stuff. Um, I think of people like Michael Bublé, who, as I recall, he said 10 years or more of doing shows in lounges and clubs and things. So my equivalent to that is going to schools, doing my school visits and things, correct? And being in the moment, having fun with it, not thinking, oh, this will get me on this list of 100 books. I had no
Yeah.
idea that would occur, right? But I was looking to the future, but I was having a lot of fun with the kids and the teachers, and they seemed to be having fun too. So, and you with your flyers going around and doing this, right? That is like me doing the school visits.
Hmm.
What I notice now is we put out a third story. I think you probably know a bit about that. This is basically the first book, which was an early chapter book, 106 pages, but we kept being told, oh, I thought it was a picture book. When I do book events or signings, oh, I thought it was a picture book for little kids. My children, I know they can't read yet. So we simplified it, slightly altered it to give it and gave it a new title so people wouldn't be confused with the first
Hmm.
chapter book. And then we took his illustrations and we put the color ones in. So, and with a simplified story. And these are based on these color ones. They're meeting the whale. I don't know if you can see the two
Yeah.
little furry landlubbers meeting Winifred Whale out in the middle of the ocean, which I also think is such a unique idea. There are animal stories out there and about ocean animals, but not about land animals encountering sea animals, and developing friendships and relationships and helping
Yeah.
each other. But these illustrations, Gordon Clover did the originals in color, and I bought them from him and had them framed. I haven't put them up yet in my new place. There's 13 or 14 of them, I think. And I had them up in one room in my old place, and I'll do that again, but I've just been in the new place for a few months. But they are so special to me. uh,
Yeah.
because they're the original watercolor illustrations that he did, for the book.
I love the passion and how much you love your project. Why don't we wrap up? This has been such a
Okay.
lovely chat. I'm so grateful for your time. Let's cap off Vision by you telling me quickly, like, where do you go from here? Are you doing more books? Is the series going to continue? Are you going to do short stories? What does Duane have in store?
No, I don't think so. I have some slight vision problems now, little floaters in the eye, and then I got a big one last year, like a little amoeba, as my ophthalmologist calls it, moving around. So I it's a bit of a strain to do anymore. And I seem to do things in threes, Chris. I speak three languages. I have 3 degrees. I've lived in 3 countries and I've done 3 books. I don't know why this trilogy is in my life so much, but this is the third book, right? And I think I'll call it a day. And my next vision really is there someone out there who can help me to turn this into an animated feature that I think a lot of people would love? And Japan's very popular now in the world for travelers and
Yeah.
stuff. So maybe people out there would find this interesting. And it is my next vision. But you yourself said there's that hard work involved. And I'm finding I was there before doing the groundwork and all the school visits and the book festivals and the indigo signings. And sometimes I don't quite have the energy, but I realize it does. If I want to make that happen, I do have to continue to do that hard work.